Yes, I could see them determining that they don't have to destroy the entire universe themselves. They just have to destroy that universe's anchor being, and then that universe will be destined to die. Hey everybody, Colton here, and this question comes to us from Harry. Harry writes, "Hey Colton, I've been loving the content these past couple of months since I discovered your channel." Well, thank you so much. With the rumor you covered in your recent video stating that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man will die at the start of Doomsday, maybe we'll talk about that. Do you think it's possible that the Fox X-Men have to kill him because he's the anchor being of his universe? I know in the comics, the rule is that one universe has to destroy another in order to survive. That's also the rule in the MCU. But given what Mr. Paradox said in Deadpool and Wolverine about anchor beings, could it be that during an incursion, killing the anchor being of the opposing universe essentially wins the standoff between the two colliding universes? That is a fantastic question, Harry, because, well, before I answer, let's recap a little, right? So there's this rumor going around, and it's being picked up by a lot of people, and I've yet to hear, I'm telling you, John Campea, who says, you know, he knows the entire plot of Doomsday, he has been known to comment, like I saw him comment on a Everything Always rumor video, like saying the plot of the film, and he was like, this isn't even a little bit correct. So I am kind of anxious to see if Campea comments on whether or not this is true or says something like no comment. But anyway, that rumor is that Avengers Doomsday opens with Alfred Molina's Doc Ock and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man fighting the Fox X-Men. And I've heard rumors that even Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool are part of that. Now, I've said for a while that I think that Monica Rambeau woke up in Universe 10005, the Fox X-Men universe, at the end of the Marvels. And we know, of course, that Deadpool and Wolverine are in that universe as well. And that I think come Doomsday, we are just going to have that one Fox X-Men universe that encompasses all the X-Men. I don't think we're going to see multiple like X-Men universes. So the rumor is that we see that Fox X-Men universe and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man universe, the two like original Marvel universes, in the midst of an incursion, and that they are going to war trying to destroy the other, or perhaps just the X-Men are there to destroy Tobey's universe to prevent their own universe from dying. Because as we learn in Multiverse of Madness, and like Harry mentioned in the comics as well, an incursion is going to result in either both universes dying or one universe dying if one of the universes can kill the other one, thus stopping the incursion, because there's no incursion to be had anymore. So Harry, in your question, you bring up, could Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man be the anchor being of his universe? And could killing him be enough to essentially stop the incursion? So let's have a refresher on what anchor beings are, right? They explain in Deadpool and Wolverine that the reason that Deadpool's universe is dying is because in the future, in the events of Logan dies, and that the timeline, the universe, begins to decay backwards. Now, they don't get into the nitty gritty of it all, and they really don't explain it well, and there's a lot of contradictory stuff. But if you look on the TVA screen in that scene, you can see there's the line that represents like the whole universe and it's decaying, but there's also branch timelines coming off of that, like main timeline, the Fox X-Men timeline. And as that branch dies, all the branches attached to it die. So kind of like the trunk of a tree decaying, and like as it decays, the branches decay with it. Kind of like that sort of thing. Even though with a tree, it's the branches that die and then hit the trunk. And actually, with that whole analogy there, Ryan did a great video over on Screen Crush theorizing that in Days of Future Past, when Logan went back and tried to change the future, that he didn't actually change the future, that he created a splintered timeline, and that when he goes on into that new happy future that eventually leads into Logan, and then he dies, that he was the anchor being of that particular branch, and he's the whole reason that it exists. He's the only remaining piece from the other universe that remembers anything, and that him dying is what is causing that branch to die. So, like with actual trees, like one tree can get another tree infected by the branches. Like if this tree's sick and touches this branch, trees will get sick and start to die from the branch and then on down to the trunk. So perhaps Ryan's onto something there with that branching timeline, with Logan being a branch timeline. The reason it's dying is because it was the anchor being of that timeline, the only reason it should exist, or can exist, and perhaps shouldn't have existed. And then once that sickness hits the trunk, it destroys the whole universe. Now, they don't get into the explaining of really how all that works. At the end of the movie, somehow Wolverine being there, him just being like replacing with another Wolverine, that's not what saves their entire timeline. But Deadpool and Wolverine and their sacrifice together is what saves the timeline. And I've theorized that essentially that means that they together became the new anchor beings of that timeline. So essentially, I know I'm rambling. An anchor being is a being that if they die, that universe dies. Now, that's a little weird, right? Because people die. Like Wolverine, even someone like Wolverine, who theoretically doesn't die, he eventually will die. So does that mean that every universe is just destined to die if their anchor being dies and they're not able to exist beyond a certain point? And if their anchor being dies in like the 1700s, well, then that universe only exists to that point. I don't know. It gets messy and kind of confusing. So let's just accept it for how it is right now, even though it doesn't make sense, and talk about the possibility of with what they have given us, Tobey Maguire being the anchor being of his universe, which of course, who else would be the anchor being of his universe, right? Because there's also the meta concept really to anchor beings. And Kevin Feige has even kind of slipped up and said in an interview when he was talking about how they wanted to end Iron Man, in the character of Iron Man in Endgame, that they were inspired by how Logan ended. And I think there's an article with a quote where he like refers to Iron Man as their anchor being. So there's lots of theories that when Robert Downey Jr., or excuse me, when Tony Stark dies in Endgame, that he was the anchor being of that universe, and which of course he would be, he or Steve Rogers, and that when he died, that is what is now causing 616 to die. And also, if you think about it, like in Ryan's video where he theorizes that Wolverine became the anchor being of that specific timeline and that his death then caused it to decay and affect the entire universe, the same could be true in Endgame with 616. If Tony and his invention of time travel, and they're tampering with the events of time and altering time and changing, going back in time and getting the stones and doing the snap and bringing all those people back, perhaps that wasn't supposed to happen, and it created a branch timeline in that moment when they created time travel that could have a bright future. But since Tony died, it very quickly began to also decay, just like with Logan. So if Tobey Maguire is the anchor being of his universe and the X-Men really just need to destroy that universe, well, instead of trying to just like get the power to actually destroy an entire universe, we could see them just determine, actually, we just need to kill that guy. He is the anchor point. And if we take him out, and we could see like a cool scene where like Beast is like down in the lab and he figures this out, and maybe he's kind of wheezy about doing it. And maybe that's when we see that conversation between Magneto and Xavier. And maybe Xavier is kind of bought into the trolley problem of it all, saying, look, either both are going to die or one's going to die, and we can save ours. So the logical, like, even you can make the most moral argument is we have to destroy that universe. And then Magneto could come in and kind of be like, roles kind of flipped here. And that's when Magneto could give that speech about, look, it's not about how you die. Forget that we might die. Forget that we're going to die. He even says in the trailer, death comes for us all. I think Magneto's telling Xavier in that moment, you don't need to go through with this plan. All that matters, it doesn't matter how you die. All that matters is who you are when you close your eyes. So Magneto could be appealing to Xavier saying, look, I know what you're wanting to do. Not a good idea because you're not going to be able to live with it. And when death eventually comes for you, who will you be when you close your eyes? I think that's what's happening there. Anyway, it yes, I could see them determining that they don't have to destroy the entire universe themselves. They just have to destroy that universe's anchor being, and then that universe will be destined to die, and perhaps that will stop the incursion, and that universe will just die. And because then you get into the relativity of time, and like, because that's what got confusing about the anchor being thing in Logan is like if there's a timeline, then essentially all time is existing at once, and like we see Deadpool go to like get Logan and like he tries to dig up the grave and all that and he gets to the the skeleton there and I'm just like, well, if you have a tent pad and you can travel back in time, then why didn't you just travel back in time and get him before he died? See, that's why I don't like time travel stuff sometimes, because it immediately gets so convoluted, especially when you don't handle it right and follow your own set of rules. Anyway, yes, to answer your question, Harry, I think that that would be awesome to find out. And it would make sense if, yeah, they end up killing Tobey in that opening scene, but I really don't think they'll kill Tobey in the opening scene. I think he's going to have a role in the movie, and perhaps they are attempting to kill him, but maybe Loki comes in and saves him. Or, hearing this rumor that Deadpool and Wolverine are also both involved in the attack on the Raimi universe, they just saved their own universe from dying. I just don't know if Deadpool and Wolverine, yeah, they are like, harder characters who are okay with, death if it has to be done. They have no qualms about killing, but I don't know, after they just went through all that trouble to save their own universe, yeah, maybe they wouldn't want to see, wouldn't they be willing to do anything to keep it alive if it's now in an incursion with that universe, but at the same time, I could see them being like, this isn't right, we can't do this. I don't I don't know. And they're heavily involved with the TVA now. The TVA is keeping an eye on them, I'm sure. The TVA is impressed with them. But yeah, maybe we could see Loki come in. I just spit everywhere, sorry. Maybe we see Loki come in and like stop the war, stop the battle, say there's another way. And maybe that's when he gets like Deadpool, Wolverine, and Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and he's like, come with me, there's another way where you both universes can live. I think that would be pretty neat to see. But yeah, to answer your question, I do think they probably are coming after Tobey. With this being the opening scene and the battle starting there, I'm wondering if we're just going to hear exposition later or get some flashbacks or anything, like showing Tobey Maguire, showing Spider-Man or Peter Parker working like with Dr. Octavius and Dr. Osborn, like in the lab and like learning that the incursion is happening and trying to figure out what they need to do to stop it. And I love the idea of, since Tobey's universe doesn't have any like superpowered people, the one like remaining guy, because a lot of you guys pointed this out to me in the comments, of course, that Sandman wouldn't have his powers anymore. Goblin wouldn't have his powers anymore. The only one who would still have his powers is Doc Ock with his arms, assuming that he survived. And we're actually going to do a video talking about that. But it is going to be cool to maybe see Doc Ock and Spider-Man trying to fight off the X-Men. And maybe that's the moment you do kill off Alfred Molina, kill off Doc Ock in that opening sequence, and then see a portal open or a TVA portal open. And maybe it's Deadpool and Wolverine who are against what the X-Men have decided to do. And maybe it's Deadpool, Wolverine, Magneto, and Xavier. And they're there to pick up Tobey Maguire, and they're like, come with me if you want to live. And why did I do a little bit of an Arnold Schwarzenegger accent when he's not the one who says the line in the movie? To my Terminator fans, you got that kind of. Anyway, yeah, I think that'd be pretty dope. And then maybe it's Cyclops who has so much to lose that maybe he's the one who has decided to push through with the attack when maybe the others didn't. And maybe we're seeing Loki form his team. All right, I've rambled on long enough, right? All right, thanks so much for the question. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.